At 8:20 a.m., 10 minutes before H hour, pennants were hauled down from the control craft, and the first wave of amphibious tanks, covering an almost unbroken 8-mile line, began to move towards the shore, a distance of 4,000 yards, at a speed of 4 knots. They were preceded by gunboats firing enough rockets, mortars, and 40mm guns to saturate each prearranged 100-yard target square for up to 1,000 yards inland, with at least 25 rounds. The crescendo of the bombardment, noted Buckner on the El Dorado, culminating in the rocket discharge, was a magnificent spectacle. Following a minute behind the tanks was the first wave of assault troops in amphibian-tracked vehicles, or Amtraks, likened by Ernie Pyle to big trucks on tractor treads built cup-like, that propel them through the water, and the moment it touches bottom, it crawls along like a tractor. More followed at 10-minute intervals, with Wave 6 scheduled to leave before Wave 1 hit the beach. Pyle watched them go with a miserable and awful weight on his heart. "There's nothing whatever romantic," he reported, "in knowing that an hour from now you might be dead." The advance elements of 4 infantry divisions, a total of 12,000 men, were now heading for the shore, fearful of what awaited them. The most experienced was the 1st Marine Division, which, in August 1942, had become the first U.S. infantry formation to see action when it invaded Japanese-held Guadalcanal in the Solomon Islands. That bloody campaign had lasted 5 long months before Japanese resistance was finally broken by the Marines. In 1944, they saw more fighting at Cape Gloucester and Peleliu, particularly the latter, where the fanatical Japanese defense had cost the division almost 6,500 casualties. The Canal veterans had since rotated home, replaced by 8,000 raw recruits, but many of the rest remembered the storm of fire that had met them on the beaches of Peleliu, and, quite understandably, feared a repeat. Among them was 29-year-old First Lieutenant Bill Looney, a graduate in economics from Chicago's Roman Catholic Loyola University, who had fought and only narrowly survived the last 2 campaigns as a platoon commander with Charlie Company, 1/5th Marines. Now second in command as the Company XO, or executive officer, he and his men had departed their base camp in the Russell Islands a fortnight earlier, aboard a flat-bottomed landing ship tank, LST, that had bunks for 217 men, expecting their target to be the island of Formosa. But after a 6-day stop at Alethi Atoll in the Western Caroline Islands, where they were met by the awesome, frightening sight of the totally gutted and listing aircraft carrier, the USS Franklin, which had been bombed by a single Japanese aircraft on the 19th of March, they finally learned the truth en route to Okinawa. Earlier that morning, after a great breakfast of steak and eggs, they had watched a battleship shoot down a Japanese kamikaze plane after every other ship in the harbour had tried and failed. It was as though the battleship had waited to see if the amateurs could handle it. The excitement over, Looney and his men were ordered into the Amtraks that were crammed into the LST's hold, where the stench of gasoline and the noise of the engines was almost overpowering. Finally, the bow doors opened, and, one by one, the Amtrak splashed into the water as "Good luck, Marines!" sounded on the ship's loudspeaker. Looney was half expecting his Amtrak to go directly under, but it stayed afloat and moved slowly towards land. It was, he remembered, a nervous and quiet group crammed into his Amtrak, all with the same questions and anxieties going through their minds. Are they waiting for us at the shore? How will we get up those sand dunes? Will it be as bad as Peleliu? Will I make it again? Similar thoughts were occurring to Corporal Jim Johnston, a high school valedictorian who in 1942 had quit the University of Nebraska-Lincoln to join the Marines because he thought it was the honourable thing to do. Though only 22, Johnston was acting commander of a section of machine gunners in Easy Company, 2/5th Marines, and felt keenly the weight of responsibility on his shoulders to get his men through the campaign safely. Everyone who had been in front of me in my unit was dead or gone, he noted. There was no one to lean on for help. Wherever I looked, someone was looking back at me. Their briefing on what to expect had left Johnston extremely pessimistic. Protecting most of the shoreline his company was assaulting was a high seawall, save